Hello everyone, my name is Phil Botley and I am the Alias Product Manager. Welcome to this Alias 2022 What's New presentation. Hope you enjoy what you're going to see. First of all, before we have a quick look at the highlights, big shout out to our dev and design guys who've done a really tremendous job again. You know, we're rocking and rolling now with all these releases from 2019, 20, 21, and now there's another seismic release in Alias, and really building on the foundation and moving us forward at quite a good rate of knots. Some of my favorite highlights of this release are real game changers for Alias, right? Last year we had History Visualizer. Now we've got Presets, which is the first stage of our feature library for Alias. And this is really the ability to define, save, and reuse components across your design team. So you can save a library of features, and a library of components, and have the geometry automatically rebuild to explore those themes and explore those shapes. That's a really powerful tool and capability that you'd normally find in CATIA or NX, slap bang in the middle of Alias. So that's really, really great. Another enhancement or continued enhancement is what we're doing in Reference Manager and this concept of Alias assemblies, which as we know, we've expanded so we can work with MCAD capability. We can now read native NX and JT files and maintain the assembly structure and always be up to date and just locally update the parts that have changed as opposed to the complete assembly concept, but also go to the front end as well. So we can actually begin to work very tightly with Blender and Maya and tools like that and work on Blender data in real time in Alias as well. So really connecting these components and putting Alias at the center of design studios. Another great enhancement are the Dynamo tools that we keep on doing and the work that Gigi and Kai are doing in creating a whole new suite of Dynamo scripts for this release, some really cool ones like the tire example, which we'll look at later on. But also we're now beginning to take Dynamo into a different direction, beginning to use Dynamo to unlock the potential of those individual Alias tools when joined together into a single Uber tool. Gives you that kind of ultimate power and a turbocharged tool, but also allowing us to create tools that don't exist in Alias and capabilities that don't exist in Alias by using Dynamo kind of inside to really move things forward. As usual, this is just a very quick overview. For more information, we have a series of deep dive sessions which Barry, and Uwe, and Sahil and the usual gang are working on, and they'll be live after this event, and they'll go into detail on Create VR and assemblies and visualize and features and stuff. So stay tuned for those for more information. But our three themes really for this release around workflow and collaboration. As we said before, how can we connect design tools and engineering tools with Alias at the center? Class A, what are we doing around the Class A space? We're in the middle of a very exciting time for Alias as we're migrating customers from legacy Class A tools to Alias to really offer a unified pipeline from CAS to surface release into engineering and beyond. We're already seeing time savings of 50% with some customers by really doubling down on this kind of maturation of the design process and the geometry. Instead of actually throwing it over the fence and going into a different package and having two discrete teams of people, we're kind of fusing everything together to create an agile team and an agile suite of assets and capabilities for customers to really get faster to market. So that's an ongoing project, which we'll talk more about later on. Then finally, there's the capture, the reuse, and share. Converting that IP that we have in our design language into reusable assets and tangible assets that we can share across design studios, extended design studios, and the supply chain. All right, so we can begin to convert what we've got, use it, but critically also, we can actually begin to rebuild geometry quicker and faster and more effectively. And essentially what this means for us is that we can put our arms around design. Right? We can maintain design intent, and we can allow such great things as mistakes in design and avenues we go down we didn't think to go down, which lead to some really great ideas because we're saving time, but we can put our arms around it, protect it, and securely transfer it all the way through to surface release into engineering, so we can pretty much try and guarantee that the product you have in your hand or on your drive, in your hand on your phone or on the drive in your car, really kind of adheres to those original sketches and design language and the surfacing, and doesn't get lost in translation sometime further down the stream. And that's really the benefit of that single pipeline. And the pipeline, of course, isn't just Alias, even though we work around the whole process and we go from styling to cast to production and engineering. We're there with Red as well, and the master model from a visualization perspective in companies, allowing them to reuse that data, visualization data, right the way through into production engineering and configurators. We're working very closely with customers to implement Shotgun and really taking those learnings of maybe a decade or so of media and entertainment experience and taking some of those workflows and approaches and putting them into the automotive world, such as automation of tools, batch processing of capability, bespoke and unique tools to really optimize everyday tedious processes that Shotgun can automate and make seamless and actually really improve the workflows and tools moving forward. So without further ado, we're going to look at some of those buckets in a bit more information. First one we'll look at really is workflow and collaboration. We have our immersive VR sketching tool called Create VR. Again, we've released new capability in the 2022 release, such as extruding, as well as some other significant enhancements to really make it faster and more intuitive and easier to sketch. But it's not just in the content creation which we're working on, it's actually in how we can detail and explore themes. And this is where tools like Dynamo really help us to create these libraries of shapes which we can just throw onto the geometry, explore, iterate super quickly. Weeks become hours become minutes, and we can really explore and go through a lot of iterations super fast, super quickly as a team and begin to share that moving forward also. But from a Dynamo perspective, it's not just shapes, right? That's the first thing you think of when you think of computational design, but it's actually much broader, right? It's a real process enabler. It's a game changer. And we've done two key things to enable this. We've released something called Dynamo Player, which we released 6 months ago, and we've enhanced it and we've updated capability to make it really a little bit more seamless. And this is the idea of actually creating a script, such as the wheel that you see here, and being able to actually just control it by moving sliders left or right without having to know how the script works or how it was created, but critically using that script and sharing it with my whole team. Okay, that's really, really super powerful. Dynamo inside, but having no idea of what Dynamo can do, but automating these complicated and quite tedious geometry creation jobs. The other feature is really actually taking these and adding lots of tools together. And one example of this is a morphing tool. And this is really the ability to have a shape A and shape B and actually interpolate between the two. So we can actually just explore how the shape evolves in certain areas just by moving a slider. So I don't need to know about keyframe animation or animation shape or how to use maybe T-rigs now. I can actually begin to use this capability very easily. So real examples of how we're actually improving workflow, making us work faster, speeding up the process and making things even more efficient. As we said before, we ship a load of new Dynamo Scripts with 2022. There's some of the icons you can see there, which are on your shelves. But critically, what we're finding now is customers are actually creating their own tools. Okay, capability and tools that actually aren't in Alias, and you might want them to be, you now have the power to create them yourself. If you come up with this crazy idea to create, for example, an automated tire tool, as we have done, you can actually now go and build it yourself and then run it from Alias, have your own Alias icon on there, right? You don't need to know about Dynamo or stuff. You can run it from inside Alias, and that's just a very simple example. Complicated examples such as parametric cars, engineering body and white capabilities, those are all the sort of capabilities now which can be automated. You can create specific tools, so CATIA NX capability inside of Alias from a geometry creation perspective, and you can now run them inside of Alias on Alias geometry, basically build capability yourself into Alias and customize it until the cows come home and your heart's content. So that's really quite a significant step for us, and we're seeing a lot of adoption and uptake in customers. And this leads us to really into this vision of collaboration. We talk about workflow improvements and speed and optimization. We're also beginning to collaborate more widely than ever before, not just with the CATIA and engineering side or NX side, but also into the design space, into other tools, whether it be with our colleagues who are doing fast sub-D modeling in Maya or Blender, reading that data in, maintaining the integrity of the subdivision, maintaining the crease information as well. So working simultaneously, building around, using potentially the data as a scaffold data to build around it. So we can have, multidisciplinary teams on Surf and Alias in a Class A sense. We can ensure the ensure the inherency of the integrity, of the data and the legacy project. So that's a real game changer for us also in terms of working collaboratively. And our customers are beginning to see real benefits or real benefit in deploying that. As we said before, we're focusing a lot on Class A, whether it be migrating customers, but also in allowing that collaboration, with our enhancements to Reference Manager, with the multidisciplinary team concept. Not only can we have Alias assemblies, where we can have a 12, 16 person team, but we're also beginning to expand that and to actually move into other areas or other CAD components such as NX or JT, and as we will see, into data management systems. So we can begin to work and get right into the heart of the data management system, ensuring that our customers have 150% confidence the data is released on time, it's legally bound, it's traceable, it's sorted, really giving them confidence to use that Alias data right the way through into the manufacturing environment moving forward. We've talked about this before, and those of you who've seen my AIF presentations before will be aware of this change we've done in the history representation from a kind of a serial approach into a dependency graph, giving us this ability really to change an input component and have the resultant geometry rebuild automatically. Again, MCAD capability inside of Alias, allowing us to build parametric components, cards, frames, whatever, call it what you will. But by changing those components, we don't have to rebuild the geometry anymore. The geometry updates automatically, and very complicated geometry as well. So if I, for example, and say engineering requirements change, if say a section changes, and that section is being used to drive geometry in Alias, like you would expect in CATIA or NX, any changes now to that component will update the geometry automatically. And that's really powerful for our users. As we see in the video from a while back, I think it really shows a key principle of what we can do by replacing the geometry and the geometry rebuilds automatic, that curve and surface replace workflow, very powerful. And this takes us to the next stage, right? So we've built upon that. So we wanted to go into this world of features and presets. So this takes us to the level where we can now save types of geometry. We can save types of fillets, for example, G3, G2, different rads, etc., different panel gaps even. And we can have those in a definable menu, and we can just select those from our history visualizer, our node-based editor, and we can just select on them, and the geometry rebuilds automatically. I just change either the input, or I change the parameters from a set of presets from a library, and the geometry rebuilds. And I can share this with my team, right? So I can have this use, or this particular set of criteria used globally, used at particular design gateways, used on particular projects. I can begin to create feature libraries and concepts. So I can really now democratize these components and share them amongst my design teams. Leads me nicely into this topic of create, replace, and share. And the vision that we have really is that, well, I can now do almost anything in Alias, right? If I need to rebuild my cast data or cast ready data into Class A data, I can do that by actually going to my library and replacing that. I can empower new users to be super efficient very quickly because I can have a series and a library of features that they can use to rebuild geometry automatically. It's a guide. Alias begins to help you on your journey, which is really one of the most powerful things that we can do in Alias. We mentioned before about Dynamo and some of these automated tools that we have. And here's an example where we can actually create an automatic tire tool. And you can see we can control it from the sliders. We can put the crown on the wheel. We can change some of the cross-section rads, or we can change the width, or you name it, we can do it and we can add to it. And this really is lumping a lot of Alias tools together into a super uber tool. With Dynamo running in the background, and we don't need to do that, this can now be a standard tire creation tool as an example for the whole of our company, or the whole of your company, right? You can now deploy this around your teams, and this is just one example. But critically, we can also do quite cool stuff, right? We can begin to put the tread on there. So we can begin to layer geometry on top of geometry, or complicated patterns as well on top of this. So not only are we creating super tools, which are very good at automating the process, but we can begin to detail them now. And this is an example really of how we can actually use Dynamo to create tools which don't exist in Alias, but also to solve those process problems. If there's a problem you have, it's a suite of tools you need, And if there's capability that you're thinking, oh, I wish I had that, you can now build that yourself inside of Alias and really, really collapse that time process, which is really quite impressive moving forward. Which leads to this overarching concept that we've been talking about for a while, which is design with me. A suite of templates, whether they be computational design templates, feature libraries, Dynamo Scripts, other files that allow me as a designer to go super fast with Alias. As a new starter, I can begin to understand the design language of a company and actually experiment and explore and feel secure because Alias is there helping me. Or I can have something as mundane as actually just rebuilding and replacing my sub-D geometry or my poly geometry or my Alias cast geometry with Class A engineering ready geometry to be used downstream. Brief update of some of the technologies and features. As I said, make sure you check out the deep dives. Really, really good stuff there from the guys. But sometimes we gloss over what are we doing in the ecosystem? What about a general update? And Ning Ding, one of my colleagues in China, has created this awesome book about Alias. It's released in a month or so's time. I've proofed it and reviewed it. A fantastic manual of how to use Alias, right? From Sub-D, Create VR, Dynamo. It's more of a design lesson, a guide. And it's a super book, but that's specifically for the Chinese market, where we're working very closely with some of the universities there as well to grow the user base in China. And we'll be doing the same in India also, and really expanding our footprint to ensure that we have thousands and thousands of new Alias users coming every year to really put into companies and sort of grow the markets. Hopefully, I'll be in China in the fall to sit down with some of these customers and to explore some of these areas. As we said before, we're on a big series of projects at the moment with multiple customers to move them from their legacy sort of Class A surfacing tool onto this kind of new platform that we have in this pipeline moving forward, the single unified pipeline. And to that end, we've created over 3 ISOM to Alias conversion course, available not just in English, but available in Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. And this is another example of what we're trying to do to get the information out there. We're not going to charge for it or anything like that. Feel free to use it, have an experiment, play with it. If you like it, that's cool. If you don't, hey, that's cool also. There's no pressure at all. But we're beginning to democratize all this stuff and try and give it away for people to use and to play with. Later on this year, you'll also see a series of press releases and case studies about some of our customers, about how they're really beginning to use and take advantage of this agile development process, this single pipeline, and this transition from CAS to Class A. Mazda being one example, a great story, which is out now. And you can see how they've really kind of doubled down on our development time with this process twice as fast as their previous process. So really quite cool. Anyway, enough of kind of the general update. Let's go back to what we've got in 2022. So a quick overview of some of the highlights. Feature library presets, really, really important, and the next step in our progress moving forward for creating feature libraries and really turning data into reusable IP in custom use. Dynamo Scripts, but being able to actually use those scripts to create tools that you really haven't had in Alias before, allowing you to create your own tools for Alias, but powerful tools as well. So kind of like a super macro, if you think of it in that sense. And also collaboration, allowing users to collaborate regardless of what tool they're on. And of course, we have our usual, I didn't have much time, I've got a very short time frame here, our usual suite of surfacing enhancements. Again, check out the deep dives from the guys. You'll find all the information you need from there moving forward. And it just leaves me to say thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this presentation, and please enjoy the rest of AIF. I hope you find it enjoyable. And Alias, we're still innovating after 36 years. Hopefully meet you all soon and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.